All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining our September Lunch and Learn through the Women of Flexo. Today we've got a great opportunity to listen to Rachel McGrath from Tower, and she's going to talk about her journey to leadership at Tower Products. And the next slide will give you a few slides that talk about who the Women of Flexo is. And our co-chairs of the Women of Flexo Committee is Catherine Haynes from APR and Kirsten Borden from Exis. And the next slide is going to talk a little bit about our mission. We are comprised of industry members who support women through the industry through a variety of opportunities. And the next slide is going to talk through some of the committees that we have, subcommittees we have in our group as well. So we have a leadership development committee where we are empowering women in the industry by fostering professional development, celebrating leaders, and advocating for women in leadership as well. We have a recruitment and engagement committee that's very busy, actively engaging with women in the industry and empowering recruitment and reinforcing retention as well. And our marketing and strategy group, they do a great job of promoting us out on LinkedIn and gathering all the information about all of our committees and getting it out to the industry also. And mentorship is another subcommittee we have that develops relationships between our members, whether they're new to the industry or currently in the industry looking for some professional leadership as well. And the next slide is going to talk through some of the, if you have any interest in any of these committees, you can email the different chairs of the committees listed there. And then the next slide is going to talk through some of the upcoming events we have. We will be attending the FTA Fall Technical Conference, which is going to be next week in Orlando, Florida. If you come to the conference on Sunday from 2:30 to 3, you will hear our chair talk about Flexo Forward, Trends Shaping the Next Decade. And I'm excited to hear about her information on that as well. Monday from 7 to 8 a.m., we will be working or having breakfast with the first committee. And you can come by and have a discussion with us if you'd like to learn more about the Women of Flexo. We'd be glad to talk about that. And then we also have a reception on Monday evening from 5 to 7 with the LIFT group. And the LIFT group is the young leaders in the industry. So that'll be fun to get to know them a little bit more as well. But if you have any questions, feel free to stop by and chat with us. And then the next slide is going to talk a little bit about our very exciting event that we have every year. Have it had every year. This will be our 4th year we're having it. It's our annual Women Flexo Conference. It's coming in March. We don't have the date set yet, and the location's not set yet either. We're still working on that. But please follow our LinkedIn page. We have a lot of information that we'll put out on there once we start gathering all this data together. So with that, the next slide will introduce Rachel, who will be speaking today. She is the CEO of Tower Products. She's got a lot of great information to share with us today and got a lot of great history. And I'll let her take it over to talk through a little bit about her background and where she was and where she is today. Great. Right. To you.
All right. Thank you, Jenny. So I'm going to talk about 4 things today. I'm going to introduce myself and my company. I'm going to talk a little bit about 3 leadership challenges I'm currently facing to give you a flavor of what I'm thinking about and the challenges I've faced. And then I want to open things up and talk a little bit about the lessons that I've learned from that and how I think that can be valuable to others. And I have planned to try to leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. So I'm not going to read all of this to you. I started my career in oil and gas. I have a bachelor's and a master's in mechanical engineering from MIT. And I went to work at Chevron in 2011, mostly doing technical work that involved making nice pictures of engineering problems. I ultimately moved into a field role and left Chevron as a facilities engineering manager in 2015. The cool thing about that is that because I had a specific platform, that was my platform, I did for a while get to take a helicopter to work. When I left Chevron, I went to Harvard to get my MBA. Then I worked as an innovation consultant on problems like, our engineers invented this thing. Is there a market for it? What would it look like to build a business around this? For a few years. Then during the pandemic, I left that job because I had met the people who became the investors who helped me to buy Tower products. I spent a year in what they call their executive program, which functionally meant that I was a chief of staff to somebody who they had previously helped to buy a business, which gave me a chance to see what the job that I currently have would be like and make sure that that was something that I wanted to do. Tower Products, the company that I purchased in 2023, is we have 2 locations now. One is in Easton, Pennsylvania, and that is the facility that you see here. For 60 years, we have been selling pressroom chemistry used in offset, flexographic, and digital printing. More in offset than in flexo, but one of the reasons I'm here is that we are putting an effort into trying to grow in flexo. We serve some of the biggest names in the industry and help to create, I think, some of the best looking printing goods in the industry. We are a small company. Until recently, we had about 25 employees. Then we made an acquisition of Nova Pressroom Products earlier this year and got a second location out of that in Jacksonville, Florida, which we continue to operate. But we do work through a number of co-packers, which allows us to have a relatively national reach. I'm proud to say that we have sold products in all 48 of the contiguous U.S. states in the past 2 years since I bought the business. Like I said, the Tower Products was founded a while ago. It was founded by the Principato family. Initially, it was a cleaning products business. Then, under the leadership of Richard Principato, it pivoted to focus specifically on pressroom chemistry. We have a long history of serving big names like Fujifilm, and the evolution of Fujifilm within the industry is pretty integral to our growth story. Nova Pressroom Products, our second company location, was founded in 2007, and itself is also has a lot of names that are big within our little pressroom chemistry industry. It has been almost exactly 2 years since I bought Tower Products, and we bought Nova Pressroom Products in April of this year. One exciting thing about that, which I think speaks to the way in which we're trying to continue Tower as a family company, is when we bought Nova Pressroom Products earlier this year, my husband joined the business as our merger integration lead to help with bringing the 2 sides of the business together. One of the things that I like most about our company and that I think is most important to talk about is our company values. I like to say that I lead a team of competent, joyful doers, and that together we're striving to adapt in an industry that's undergoing lots of change. We put a lot of time and thought into defining what these values are, what it means, what it doesn't mean, to try to help to steer the company in the direction that I firmly believe it needs to go for us to remain relevant and a valued partner to our customers in the industry. All right, so that's Tower. I will jump right in to the 3 challenges that I think are the biggest challenges I've faced since purchasing Tower. So the first is that how I do the job and how I see my role as the CEO of Tower Products is not the same as the person who I bought the business from. There are some good reasons for this. He was the 100% owner. I have investors who own part of the company who I'm responsible to. And also, I use some bank debt to buy the business, so we're responsible to our lender as well. In addition to that, as proved by our activity since the acquisition, we have ambitions to be a multi-location chemical blender, which means that I need to be spending some of my time on M&A. So if you break things down, rather than leading our sales team and sort of being the face of how Tower grows in the market. I see my role as setting the direction of the company generally for other people to execute, working on M&A, thinking about who else we might want to buy, how to bring the companies together, what makes sense, what other markets we might want to enter, that kind of thing. And then all of the nitty gritty CEO stuff that that is relevant when you have investors and a bank, which you're responsible to. This, I think, is an issue because customers and team members at the beginning, at least I felt or perceived, they were expecting me to do all of those things that the former owner was doing, when instead I wanted to be spending my time on this other basket of things. I see we have a question. M&A is mergers and acquisitions. Thanks so much, Brandy, for that question. At the same time, there are, it's real that customers sometimes want to be dealing directly with the CEO of the company, particularly in a small company. But like a part of that small company feel is when a customer feels like I have this person who is in charge, and if I just contact them, they can cut through the noise and get me the result I need or explain to me why I can't have that. So it's not, and that for people who are, that sometimes buying things from a small company can be a little bit of an inconvenience. And to the extent that people are willing to put up with some of those inconveniences, they might expect like, oh, but like there's always this safety valve, or like there's that they perceive as part of what it means to give good service. I wouldn't say that I have solved this challenge, but I would say that what I've done about this is that I've tried to communicate this difference both with the team internally and with our customers. So I am working hard to establish the other members of the leadership team of Tower Products as the leadership team rather than just Rachel's company, and trying to help make clear where I don't need to be involved in the decision. I'm also working with customers and to the extent they're willing to channel specific kinds of questions to the right team members. And this can be a win-win because often those team members have subject matter expertise that makes them better at answering the question than one person could ever be. But there's some ups and downs with it. The second challenge I will talk about is the challenge of balancing current customer preferences with future customer needs. The print industry, as all of you know, is rapidly transforming. There is a strong old guard that have been, particularly in Offset, who have been in charge and been the decision makers within the industry for a very, very long time. Those customers have a certain set of preferences. They like to phone in their numbers over the phone. They don't like having to provide a PO form that says we want to buy product X and product Y and product Z, and here's what we think we will be paying for it. They like when the website stays exactly the same for years and years and years because they know exactly where to go to find the thing that they're looking for. And in some ways that is good. Like it's good to know what customers prefer because then you can deliver it. And to the extent that the mandate is don't change the website, like that's a very, very easy stricture to follow. But printing and indeed the country at large is undergoing a really big demographic shift. I'm surprised constantly how little people talk about this, but if you look at the birth years of people in American society, it's not that the same number of babies are born every year. There's a bulge. We have the baby boomers, and that's why it's named. And then there's an echo of that, which is the children of the baby boomers. So one of the ways this plays out is that the modal birth year in the United States is like 1990. So we built up colleges and campuses to house all those 18 to 22-year-olds. And then there's this rapid drop. So you'll start to read in the news about there being fewer, the like net number of college applications dropping. And part of it is because people are rethinking that whether that decision is right for them. But another part of it is just that there are fewer people graduating from high school and going on because of this pattern in the demographics of our society. In our industry, what this is starting to look like, what this will look like is as the people who have been the decision maker in purchasing departments or the decision makers in press rooms start to retire, the people coming behind them won't necessarily be just 5 years younger than them. They might be 10, 15, 20 years younger than them. And so these preferences, like I want to call a phone number and call in my order over the phone, could rapidly shift. And if Tower as a company is not preparing for what those preferences are going to be when the decision makers change out, we'll be left behind and not able to keep up. This one is a little bit less tricky to solve. What we are doing and how we are thinking about almost everything is what we call a one house with many doors approach. So what that looks like is basically we will continue offering service in whatever way it makes sense to serve it. So if you want to call in your order over the phone, you definitely can. If you want to send us a PO, that might go faster, and that might be what good service looks like to you. So there, you can still get to the same place, which is the great products the Tower product sells, but there's multiple ways to get into that house. The third challenge, and this one is the one that I would describe myself as the most nervous about talking about, is setting high but realistic standards. And I don't want that to come off as the business not having high standards before, or the people who work in the business not having high standards. I think actually one of the things that I am consistently very happy about is how much everyone who works here cares and wants to do a good job. Like that is not what we're talking about here. I think in very large companies, there is a culture of constant feedback. So you go to school and you get relatively constant feedback from your professors and from your mentors about how you're doing. Then you leave school and you go to a big company, and there's a formal structure in place for learning all the things you need to do to be effective in a particular role. I definitely experienced this with Chevron. There was a program, it was called Horizons. There was a curriculum. You went to training on prescribed days. And there was basically a checklist of things that you could work through, that you worked through over a series of 5 years, and they rotated you around to 3 different jobs. Like it was all very regimented. In a small company, just by its very nature, like it's obviously very resource intensive to run that kind of program. In a small company, not only do you not have a structured plan for developing people in the same way, because you interact with all the same people every single day, that it is interpersonally very awkward to provide the kind of feedback that people need in order to grow and develop. There's part of it is that there isn't, in most small companies, you don't have a 5 or a 10-year plan. So the idea of saying, oh, like, I need you to get better at activity X today, so that in 3 years you can be a person who's able to process 50 orders a day, so that in 5 years you know how to train a person who can process 50 orders a day. But that's crazy. Like, the amount of planning that takes, and the level of promise about what is going to happen that you have to be comfortable giving a person in order to build the trust that you need to provide constant feedback is not there. And setting a standard is ultimately about when you're going to say, this isn't what I needed, let's try again. So what I needed would have included X and Y and Z. And you need to trust that when the person you say that to hears that, they will not hear your job is in jeopardy, but instead hear, oh, like, I could have done better at this. I want to provide Rachel what she needs. I'm gonna give this a try. And they need to trust that you are not giving them this feedback because you dislike them, or that you are genuinely giving the input that is needed in order to accomplish the work. And that is, I think, hard to build if you don't have a strong direction in which you are. If you're not able to say, we have to do A so that we can do B so that we can do C. I'd say that we as a company are still working on this, but we have come a long way, and I think we're getting there on being comfortable giving small pieces of actionable feedback rather than just letting things build up over time. So those are the 3 challenges. When I sat down to think about how these might be relatable to others in a different situation, I at first didn't quite see the connecting thread. But eventually I came to realize that what these all have in common is that all 3 of these are about my fear of how others would perceive my work, my vision for the company, my input about their work. In the first case, I was worried about being perceived by customers as a person who sits in my office doing my spreadsheets rather than being out there selling. In the second case, I was worried that our current customers would perceive that we don't value their business anymore. So we're just moving everything online. In the third case, it's worry about being perceived as a tough boss rather than somebody who genuinely is trying to provide coaching so that we all can get better together. There's the challenge of actually doing the thing, but to actually like take on the challenge head on I had to confront my fears about what other people would think when I started trying to confront the challenge. And that, I think, is something that a lot of people, women in particular, struggle with, because we tend to be a little bit more empathetic, a little bit more in tune with the emotions and experiences of those around us, and a little bit more worried about proving ourselves, particularly in industries where there are a lot of men, and you might come to it with a feeling that like you need to show people that you can be just as good. Jenny's asking a really good question, which is about whether I've experienced any issues with being a woman CEO in this industry, and how I deal with it. So I've never been a CEO in any other industry, so I actually only have an N of 1 on that. I don't think that anything that I have encountered in printing is any different or any worse than it was in oil and gas. I think in general, we're at a spot in society where people aren't saying to people's faces, "Oh, you could never do this because you're a female person." So that is good. So everything is always in this like, "Oh, is this happening because I'm female, or is this?" So it's it's a thing where you can never quite be sure. I will say, in particular, when I was with the first challenge about doing the job differently than the former business owner, I had a baby about 3 weeks after I bought Tower. Buying a business is a really drawn out process, and so when you say, "Oh, like we're definitely going to close on the business on this day," that is not the day you're going to close. At first I was going to have 4 or 5 months between buying the business and having the baby, and then you in general want to do your acquisitions at the close of a month because that's nice for the accounting. And so it just keeps getting moved. So at first it was 4 or 5 months, and then it was 100 days, and then it was, oh, I'll have 2 months, and then it was, I'll have a month, and then the baby came a little bit early. So I was very worried with not doing all of the exact activities the former CEO did, that it would be perceived as like, oh, this woman is just a mommy, like she's just like a figurehead, she's not like really doing the work, she's just caring for her kid rather than caring for her business. I haven't gotten that much. Nobody has said anything about that directly to my face. It would take quite a personality to do that, I think. But I think in my fear, there was a kernel of, do I need to do an even better job of showing how hard I work to make sure that people don't think that I'm slacking off to take care of my family. Oh, that's another good question, Jenny. So buying a company was not something that occurred to me as a thing that I could do until I was in business school. Like it didn't, like I thought that acquisitions were something that like really, really big companies did, not that a person could just go out into the world and get a loan and buy a business. And there was just a day in business school where somebody who had done this came and spoke to our class, and just the second I heard that it was a possibility, I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. I think it was in my bio slide, but I did not read that to you. So I was homeschooled growing up, and I was a curious kid, so my education was like very, very self-directed, and I've always been kind of an independent person, And so I thought I definitely the independence and the like, I can set the direction that I want to be going in was just like really appealing from the outset. I think also that both my parents are somewhat entrepreneurial. My mom is a piano teacher, so she was working on. She had about 40 students at one point. So that, and my dad is an electrician, but also they have a farm. So like seeing them, sort of like make their own hours and get to set their own direction, I think sort of made that kind of thing naturally appealing to me. And now having done it, I think it would be really hard to go back to having a boss and needing to subsume my vision for how I might spend my time to somebody else's vision. It looks like we are talking about possibly bringing Jenny back onto stage, so this could be a little bit more conversational, and that sounds good to me. I would be happy to do that anytime.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. I usually we try to have canned questions, and those weren't canned at all. I just was curious to know because it's an interesting career path from where you've been and understanding even from the Chevron days where, they place you and teach you and you go from place to place to place. They switch you around every 5 years and then to a job where you're the owner now. That's kind of crazy, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice would you give to someone in the industry that wants to be more outgoing or more, obviously we always want to be bigger than we are, right? We want to get to the next level. What kind of suggestions would you have? Obviously you're working on coaching your internal employees and stuff as well too, on what their next career paths are. What kind of suggestions would you have for women in the industry to follow their dreams?
So I think, and this was my big, why I feel like the observation that all my challenges are actually about confronting my fear of perception is that you have to get past that fear. Like you have to confront it, and which doesn't mean which doesn't mean saying like, oh, like there's no reason to be afraid. It just means like, okay, like I'm gonna like I feel this, I have this fear. Let me examine that. What about this is rational, and what can I do about the part of it that is rational? And to the extent that you are not going to talk to your boss about what your next role might look like, or not looking at what more responsibility might look like, or interviewing for jobs or things like that, to the extent that you're not doing that because you're afraid of what might happen, like you can't understand what is possible until you put aside all of the negative things that could happen. So I think my advice would be to take a little time to say, what is it that I want that I'm not pursuing because I'm afraid? And how can I make some like tangible steps towards doing something about it in a way that lets me get more comfortable and get less afraid.
Your comment earlier about the workforce and how there's not a lot of people coming in like there used to be, and a lot of them are getting ready to retire and stuff as well too. It seems like now more than ever, it's a great time for women to really just take that leap forward, take the next role or the next steps that they want to take, and it's pretty exciting. And I'm glad that we're a part of this group as well, the Women of Flex, all the different women industry women events we have and stuff, because it is nice to have a cheerleading group out there helping you get to the next level and stuff as well too. So yeah,
I think there's a lot of really great knowledge that is essentially about to graduate from the industry. And everybody, like whenever you talk to any owner of a distribution business, any owner of a printing business, there's all this talk about what are we going to do about all this talent walking out the door. And in a lot of industries that have this dynamic, and oil and gas was very much like this, like even more so because it tends to be boom and bust. And what happens is in the good times you make a bunch of people and then who are good at their jobs, and then the people who are right behind them who come in at the bust times all leave. So there was this dynamic of people who got their start by following, as an older person was ready to tail down their travel or tail down their involvement, or they would move into more of a contractor role, and there would be somebody who was there like picking up the spreadsheets and the work and the like preparing for the meetings of all of it. And then eventually that person retires, and now the person who has been doing that more more block and tackling type work is now the person who has this knowledge because there was a consistent long-term training. I think that in general women are better at those picking up the knowledge that has been created and structuring it and formatting it type roles. And just I think mentality wise it's more about optimizing, creating than about like I'm going to strike out on my own and figure out how to exactly do it all myself in a new way. And so I think looking for opportunities where you can become the vessel that knowledge lives in is a pretty solid move.
Great. There's another question in the chat. What's next for Tara Products?
Gosh, we have that question is planted. Kristen is one of our many fine employees. I think that in 5 years, I would like us to have not 2 locations, but 3 or 4. I want to be a national provider of pressroom chemistry. So we're working really hard at that. We are working on some interesting new product ideas that solve problems that people have. So a lot of people are moving to saturated washcloths rather than wash itself. So we are working on ways to bring more, to expand the selection of those that we offer to our customers. We have with Kristen, who comes not from the print industry, but from sort of a fleet maintenance type background. She's known as the Queen of Wipes. We have some new products that are cleaning wipes rather than bottles of cleaning product, that are more convenient, that are just easier for getting the work done more quickly, which in the modern pressroom is very relevant because we're trying to print more stuff with fewer people. And many of those are actually biodegradable. So it keys into another big theme for us, which is sustainability. And then for products where we need to be at a more competitive price point and need to, one of the easiest ways to squeeze some cost out is to ship less liquid around. Like we're looking at ways to get powder products into our customers' hands. So we've taken all that weight of all that water that we're shipping out, which is money saving. It's better for the environment, etc. And that might be powder going directly to the printer, or it might be working within our distribution network to just add the water much later in the supply chain.
Great. Another question popped up.
Ooh.
As the CEO, what's one thing you strongly believe is true that most people would disagree with you on?
Ooh. Here's the thing. I think I don't want to hear about what a great relationship somebody has with customer XYZ if they can never deliver that customer any bad news whatsoever. Like if you can't go to somebody and say, we've been working together a long time, I got to tell you, like, you don't have a relationship. You just serve that person.
Interesting. Good. Awesome. All right. Any other comments or questions? If you have a question, please put in the comment section.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward, Rachel, to seeing you in the industry, and hope at some of the next conferences we have coming up and stuff as well too. We'd love to have you, and I think with that, any final comments for the women in the industry?
Well, so I have one last. Here's how I think about the confronting fear in the way that I was talking about earlier. Like, I think you've got to interrogate the fear. You've got to think through, like, is this something I can compromise on, or can I have my cake or eat it too? The one house, many doors solution. If, like me, your fear is about others' perception, or that others will think that XYZ is going to happen, you should, even if you don't think it's going to happen, you should sit down and you should confront that with the person whose perceptions you're afraid of. If you're given good news, if like what you're saying is, no, I'm you can still call in your orders, you should have a conversation with them and say, like, we're keeping the phones, like, you will be able to call in your orders. It is you will either be pleasantly surprised and people will not have been worried about that, or you will alleviate somebody else's fear, and that's a great spot to be in with your customer. If you've got bad news, and to be clear, we are not taking away the phones. Nobody take away from this. You want people to call in your orders. If you are giving bad news, most people respect hearing about it directly rather than finding out about it through some other channel. So the way to soften the blow of having bad news to deliver is to actually talk about it. And so those are my recommendations.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. I think we're out of questions now. And I think we're definitely over our half hour here, but appreciate you taking the time, and hope to see you soon at the next conference.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me. This was such a privilege.
Great. Thanks so much. Take care.
Right. Bye.
Bye.